Hello and welcome on this new episode of ClubSpotter. And today I'm super happy to talk with Grégoire, who is the HubSpot guy on YouTube. Grégoire, I let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Blondine. First, thanks for inviting me in ClubSpotter. I'm really honored to be part of this podcast. And to tell you more about myself, it's been 8 years I've been working with a spot. At the beginning, it was not by choice. Just like everywhere I was going as a work experience, I was ending in a company using a spot. And now it's been 3 years. I'm dedicated full time to help companies to either set up or most of the case optimize their use of HubSpot, like make sure their portal fits their exact needs. You call me the HubSpot guy as well because recently I started to create content on my blog and YouTube channel, and I wanted to fill a gap that I found in the HubSpot content ecosystem. Like before, it was just like basically why choosing HubSpot kind of videos to sell the software, or how to basic stuff in HubSpot, like how to create tasks, how to create active leads, basically everything that is related to HubSpot features directly. And I wanted to like just showcase everything I learned about how to use HubSpot properly in real situations and show like turnarounds or how to find our way around the limitation of HubSpot by using automations, create properties, etc. And I want it to be when someone is looking for something really specific, such as like how to deal with lead assignment when your sales are on vacation. I want to be that guy that appear on his search results that answer his exact needs.
Hey, thank you very much, Grégoire, for this cool presentation. Like in all the episodes of ClubSpotter, you decided to talk about a subject and you choose to talk about properties on HubSpot, which is quite a huge subject with many things to do. First of all, why did you choose this subject?
When you asked me what I want to talk about, I was thinking about a lot of stuff, such as like automations, how to set up a portal, etc. But I realized that properties is 90% of what HubSpot is, and that will be critical in terms of if your HubSpot portal helps you serve your company needs or create like a full chaos and you will not be able to access any information or to do anything within your HubSpot portal. So it seems basic, but for me is the most important thing to master in terms of HubSpot knowledge.
And I do agree. So, for you, what kind of question is essential to ask yourself before creating all the properties on your HubSpot?
Asking a lot of questions before creating a property or before using a property is essential because just to take a bigger picture, when we think about what is a spot is like a huge Excel on steroids with orange color, basically. And it's just a software that stores information about your leads or your clients. And the way you store this information is really important. So when it comes to storing information in your HubSpot portal, it's really important to think about how you want it to be done. And for that, in my opinion, there is two main questions you should ask yourself in order to create that properties. When you think about it, a property arrives in your CRM from a source. And if you store this information, so if you use energy to store this information, it should answer a specific goal or a role. So every time you need to create a property, you need to ask these two questions. Where is it coming from? And what's the goal of this information? It could seem a bit scholar, but answering these two questions will really define how you create this property. So for the role, for instance, people think properties are a way to store information about a lead, but actually they are way more than that. They can, yes, help getting qualitative information about leads to help sales to know them better, for instance, but they can have a segmented role for your communications. Like I want to send this specific email only to my French leads. They can have a personalization role as well for your communication. So, hi, first name, welcome to this newsletter. I'm happy to find you working at your company, etc., etc.
And don't forget to have first name then. Avoid
Yeah.
fight to send mail with a high first name.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's important to store the data correctly. It can also have a reporting role, of course, like it's some properties that are only here to display the perfect information on the report. So for instance, you know the information of a country of a lead, but having a graph showing all the 200 something countries might be a bit hard to digest. So you might want, instead of showing these 200 something countries, to display the continent or the regions. So how many links we have in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, or other part of the world. And my favorite role of property, it could be operation role. Basically, you can use properties to trigger automations or to collect even more data in other properties about your leads. For instance, I find a use of a property that I call switch properties, which is just a yes/no property that can start a bunch of automations. For instance, in your contact record, you will have like a property name create a deal. And if you
Mhm.
click on create a deal is equal to yes, it will start an automation that will create the perfect deal with a good nomenclature, with the good information you want to copy from a contact, a company, etc. So that's another role of property that is not just about collecting qualitative information about a lead.
Yeah, and
So
a question that I have is like, how to set up correctly your property. Like, for instance, you talk about like the nature of the answer, yes, no, numbers, whatever, dates, and do you have like the best way to find the type of property that we need to set up for a specific use case, or for a specific like kind of data that we gonna have on HubSpot?
yeah, exactly. So once you understand the role, it will by default define the type of property you want to use. If you want to segment your database based on the different annual revenues of your company, you
Mhm.
might need an annual revenue company that is a number type, for instance, because your role is to segment your database. And if you use single line text, you have the information like this company do 1 million euros as annual revenue. But when you will want to select all the companies that do more than 1 million euros annual revenue, you will be blocked because the type of property will define the filter you can apply
Mhm.
to it. So for instance, single line text contains any of a specific string of characters. I think we say like that. For numbers, it will be like is equal to, more than, less than, greater or equal than, etc. So that's really important to define the role to find the correct type. This annual revenue is obvious, but
Yeah,
hmm,
you can have
oh,
more complex situation. Speaking to property types, do you think it's important to like define the type of the property, uh, because we already think about how to analyze data, or could it be like in the same time, like you define the type of the property and then you're gonna check the analyze that you're gonna do after?
hmm. For me, answering this question is capital before creating a property, because creating a key is creating an asset, basically. So if you do this action, is because you have interest for doing it. I'm not sure about the grammar, but you get it. If you create this property, is because you have a use case for it. You will not just create a bunch of information that you will never use. So
Okay.
because your use is to analyze, let's say, the different countries of your leads, you know from the beginning that the role of this property will be to showcase this result in the report. So you will define the type of property based on that. One limitation for that is the second aspect of property. So we mentioned about role. The second one is sources.
Mhm.
There is different way to collect the data and to store it in a property. So there is ways
I
of
believe.
creating. Sorry, a bit, yeah.
I believe is one thing.
So when it comes to generate this data, there is a lot of different possibilities to do so. Basically, I can separate them in two categories. The way to populate these properties that are under our control, and the way we populate data that are not under in control. So under our control, we have like basically manual creation or editing of records directly in your CRM, which is like the most basic use of HubSpot. Like I call this lead, he give me the name of his company, I type it manually on a spot, and I click on save. You have by import, is basically doing that, but on a larger scale, like you import 100 leads and you put all the information you want, you import, and HubSpot will store it as it's supposed to. And by automation, so for instance, if this lead is matching these triggers, then I can edit a specific property and put this value. So one good use case of that is when you want to timestamp a specific action or update in a spot. Let's say this lead receives my lead magnets. The moment he receives my lead magnets, I want to create a date property that will timestamp. He received this property on 6th of December, 2 p.m. So I create data, and because I create data, I have the control on how the data will display. But the thing is, most of the time, we will receive data for our properties, but we don't have any control on it. And there's two main ways to have this data we don't have control on it is by forms and by integration. So for instance, when you integrate Hublead and HubSpot, you can map the field together, but at the end is Hublead that chooses the data that it will send to your HubSpot. You don't have the control on how the data will look like. So we can take back the example of the 1 million annual revenue. If it's a single line text and Hublead send it as a text, you will have to have this data and you will not be able to manipulate it the way you want. I guess, and I hope Hublead don't do that, but that's an example that can be a use case. For instance,
We
I
don't do
know
that.
that no, that's perfect. Thank you for that. It helps a lot of HubSpot admin to have a better day. And by forms, basically, you have a form on your website and you directly your lead to enter the value they decided to on your HubSpot portal. So there is way of controlling it, like by choosing the good type, but sometimes you will end up with bad results. We all know the at gmail.com that arrive a lot in our spot portal, and we try to avoid that by using turnarounds. But to sum up, we have the goal that will determine the type, but sometimes the source, we don't have the control on it, and it will force us to choose a different type. So we have the Hublead example, but the most famous one is LinkedIn or Facebook integration. They will send you an industry, for instance, and they decide themselves what the industry are. So you can't choose, I want you to tell me if it's like aviation, if they decide that is transportation and holidays, I don't know, they will send you this information. And that way you need to adapt and to create a property that is able to receive this information. But if your goal is to use this property in another way, you can create a second property and use workflows to populate with the good information the property you want to use for your report. So maybe we can showcase an example that shows the importance of defining the good property type for the use case we want, for the goal this property is supposed to play. Like some people, they think the type of properties is just a matter of how it will look on a form. But it will, as I said before, condition the way you will manipulate the data. And sometimes even HubSpot has some difficulties to understand that concept because they propose to us a lot of native properties. In my opinion, you should not use those native properties. You should see them as kind of a display, a showcase of what kind of information you can store. We talk about the annual revenue example that is a single line text, but the most famous example is the country region property in HubSpot. I guess you heard about it before. It's also a single line text. So now let's try to dig in the country region issue. So first, in a third portal, natively, you have three country properties. You have country region, IP country code. So it's a bit weird to have like three different ways of collecting the information. And the good thing is none of them are really well set up, in my opinion. And country region is a single line text. So now let's say that we want to use this country information to, as we said before, create a dashboard about all the repartition of our leads based on different countries. And the way we obtain this information is by asking directly the lead on a form. What will happen is the lead is facing a form. What country are you from? And they say, oh, I'm from UK. So we type UK. The next one, we say, I'm from United Kingdom. So we type that. The other one, England, etc. You get it for the same information. And even some people, they will just mistype things like UKK or United Kingdom. It can happen. So the thing is,
I've seen.
for the same country, you will have thousands of different results.
Mhm.
So your data is not clean and you can't use it because now instead of choosing a drop-down menu and say country is any of United Kingdom, when you will want to create your dashboard, you say, okay, I want to see all the UK leads. So country region is any of UK, United Kingdom, England, United Kingdom, and try to dig by yourself all the different misspelling they put and all the different values for one country. You will never remember every single iteration of this value. And every time there's a new value entering, you will not be able to take care of it. So you will not have clean data. You will not be able to use it unless spending like thousands of hours modifying your reports every day. And the thing is, HubSpot proposed this way of collecting the property natively. So it's really important that even for information you think you already get, to do this role of asking the goal, the source, to define the correct typing.
It was pretty clear with the example, and I can more agree. I've seen too many times. To you, which property are essential to set up correctly? Like, I mean, every property, but do you have like the a pack of essential property which are super useful in every industry?
Yeah, like as you said, every property should be well set up, and the goal of a property is to match your specific needs. But if we need to think about properties that need to be well set up in a spot for every kind of businesses, I can think of two because the data organization of a spot is based on those properties that are native and is really important to use them correctly. And a lot of people, they mix these two properties, which is list status and lifecycle stage. So every time I go to a new client's portal, I can see that there is some issues with these properties. Either they don't use it correctly or they don't manage it correctly. The idea is list status is, for me, the situation of the communication with your lead. You should say, I never contact this lead. I try to contact this lead. We are in contact with this lead, or is lost, is not replying. Is something that changed over time, and just to give you a snapshot of the actual situation of a lead in his buying journey. No, in your sales communication. The lifecycle stage is something, I guess, invented by HubSpot, but at least is organized as HubSpot decided to. You have different stages that go through the buying journey, and the only goal of this property is not operational, is for reporting purpose. The idea is to build a conversion funnel to see how many leads I have, how many of these leads have been qualified by marketing team, by sales team, has become an opportunity and has become clients. Most of the case we use these stages, and you have like a conversion rate for each of these stages. So the only way of using this property is that, in my opinion, actually, and it's not a matter of the name you choose. You can always put the name that corresponds to your business needs. But the idea for this lifecycle stage property and list status is to shape your exact business need. List status, if you contact them through WhatsApp, email, LinkedIn, TikTok, or whatever, and you want that to appear to display the situation you need, you can add those values. Lifecycle stage, you rename them, but you need to understand the goal is to create this conversion funnel. Once again, is really important. And it's a property that go from the top to the bottom. And the idea of this property is like it should go through each of the stage of this life cycle, and it should never go back. It's not that it was a SQL and a lead said, I'm not interested, and you go back to lead. No, it stay in SQL and it's lead status lost, not interested. That way, you know where there is like issues in your buying journey, in your sales process. And if you have a lot of MQL but no SQL, maybe it's because the MQL you generate that they are not that qualified. Or if you have a lot of SQL but not opportunity, maybe it's because the sales pitch is not strong enough, this kind of thing. So it's really important to understand that it goes from the top to the bottom. It should never go back. And in the best scenario, if you have a Spot Pro, you should automate this stage. You have a clear definition for what is a lead, what is a MQL, what is a SQL, what is the opportunity, what is a client. You create workflow to automate this data population for these properties, and manually you should never touch it. That way you're sure that you have the correct health of your business and you don't have manual error and you have the clear situation of your sales process.
Yeah, and your sales pipe too. I mean, if you are using these properties to segment also your base, it could be like interesting to see how many people are in nurturing, to have also an idea of timing, to, I don't know, to send them like an email with an offer, to call them back to see if it's the right moment, to have like a super good marketing about all the leads that you had on deal at some point, but which never became clients. So it's important to have this view to manage your base the best way and segment your base the best way. And those two properties are definitely the most important.
You're right about the use of this property. I say just for reporting, but yeah, if you define your lifecycle stage correctly, you realize that every lead that are MQL, they stopped like between downloading a lead magnet, receiving nurturing sequences, but never get called by a sales, for instance. All sales, all SQL, they stop after the first call with the sales, for instance. So you exactly know where they are in their buying process regarding your service or your product. So it's really easy to tailor specific nurturing sequences based on the situation in your sales process. So that's another good reason to set it up correctly.
Okay, and speaking to that, this is I do think that this is the funnel of the conversation, if I could say, but we are talking about using the property correctly and the right way.
Mhm.
And I have a last but not least question for you. Can you show us, or can you tell us the way that we can use properties? We have seen the way to set up a property is the best way on HubSpot. We have seen the importance of the type of property that we are creating. Can you can you tell us the best way to use property at the end, and why the why of the creation of the property?
Sure. Like it's about like what we mentioned briefly before. The idea is you don't create property just to create properties. Like for instance, when you will enrich using some specific tools to have like the email address of leads, they will tell you a lot of things about your leads, like the color of his eyes, the last 5 jobs he had, the I don't know where he lives, etc. You don't want to have this approach in terms of property. You want to only collect the data you will use at some point. So now the usage is not limited of the information you want to know about your leads. Is what we mentioned before. You want this data to know better your leads. You want this data to segment your database. Like we use a country example, but we can segment our database based on everything. If they went on our website, if they download our lead magnet, if they are clients, if they have like 5 associated companies, these kind of things. You want to collect this data just to check the health of your business by doing reporting. And it will be another way of thinking the way you create your property. And the usage that is the more advanced is really to generate ourselves the data to create automation, to deal with automation. We mentioned the timestamp property. We mentioned the switch properties as well. Like properties is just not information, is everything you want to have to play with a lead or to operate your business, but is only that. You should only collect and organize data that fit this purpose. And it's not because HubSpot tell you that they have this information for you that you should believe it blindly. It's just like it doesn't. It's not an excuse to don't do this due diligence work. It's not an excuse to don't do this job of remembering the most important thing, why I created this property, and where I will collect this data for this property.
Thanks a lot for all the super good tips that you give us. It's now time for the Anecdote, and it's your turn to have the mic.
So when you ask me about finding an anecdote, I'm trying to find something a bit particular. Unfortunately, it's not directly linked to properties, but it's basically the way I learn most of HubSpot skills I have now. And it's a bit like a catch me if you can kind of situation, like the movie. So it was one of my first clients when I was fully doing a spot operational management. So my goal was like, we have like 300 workflows. My goal was to make sure we have only 11 workflows that do the same job of these 300 without any bugs and stuff. So it was really interesting. I learned a lot about everything I can learn about automation and HubSpot tools. But it was a business. We were using like kind of B2C kind of market, and the sales were getting commission based on if a lead had this specific value in a property. And this value was populated by integration. And I didn't know anything about like security in a spot, managing like access, etc. And I realized after a few times that maybe a salesperson was like modifying the data before the end of the quarter to get like a better bonus and stuff. And I realized that, so I learned how to create access to say, okay, now you can't do that, and he still managed to. And it
I
was
never thought about. I was a salesperson, but I never thought about doing that. But that's super smart,
oh,
actually.
yeah, it's a playbook on how to do that. It was like it go further, so maybe you can take notes and get better commissions. So it was like
Who
changing
do that?
the ownership of a contact. It was like modifying the properties and stuff. And at the beginning, I
Well, the
couldn't do
ownership of the
anything.
contact, I have done that. Okay,
But yeah,
I
so that was my first fix.
I'm guilty. We have made it like boss of us, so that's okay. It was like the war between sales, like it's my lead, no, it's my lead. Okay, let's find the historics of the property, and then you see what happens. And okay, are you kidding me? Like this lead has been like from sales to sales, and no one closed them. Fact, this is at the same time like super smart, but who can do that? Okay, so this is just the start of the anecdote, and it's like it's gonna be the best anecdote I do have on ClubSpotters.
So yeah, you started to change ownership of the deal. I found a way to set up on the teams. Oh, you can't see any of the contact that is not belonging to you. So I thought I fixed the problem. Then he managed to change the properties of his existing lead to make them like deal one. Say, oh, you can't do that. So they have like enterprise version, so you could like blocks the modification of specific properties and stuff. And I say, okay, I have a flawless security now. I'm good for it. And I decided to go on a lunch break. And the only thing I didn't think it was like it could directly go to my computer with a super admin access and just do the modification by itself. And when I came back, I saw the reporting of the number. I say, it doesn't, it's not possible that that much things change in 1 hour. And I just click on historic of the properties, like, oh, Grégoire has changed this. Say, no, I didn't. I was eating my thing. And I just realized that. And it was really like funny because we both knew what was going on, but just like didn't want to make a big mess and stuff. So we just like,
So you didn't say
we were fighting
anything.
secretly. He knew, I knew, I didn't want him to have any issues. And like, it was just a game we played together. At the end, like,
You're super kind.
that's the, no, it's not. I was consultant. It's not my business. Like I just
Ah, yeah,
do the
you
thing.
were actually you were consultant. Okay,
Yeah.
and
So
do you know if this guy
just,
is still in the company?
I don't have any idea.
Okay, so
He was doing great job actually, but yeah, this was funny. Thanks to him, I learned a lot about HubSpot this day.
well, this is a cool anecdote because it made you like upgrade your knowledge on HubSpot. So that's cool. I'm gonna ask you to like make a recap of this episode, the three takeaway you want us to have. So yeah, let's recap this episode, which is super cool in terms of tips and knowledge. But so good luck.
So in 3 words would be like the goal and the source will define the type of a property, but I prepared for you a blueprint of what question you should ask before creating any new properties. So as we know, properties, they are specific for one object. So you need to define the target object. Is it the contact, company, deal, ticket, user, whatever. Then what is its role? Is it qualitative information for your sales? Qualification, you use this information to qualify your lead. Is it for operation purpose or is it for reporting purpose? And what is its source? So import manual, form integration, automation. So basically is what we saw together during this call, and it will define the most appropriate type. Now that you have that, you want to check in your portal if you have already existing property or similar property that are targeting the same goal. So is there any property already in your portal? If no, you can create the property, you're good to go. If yes, is it the wrong type that you defined or is it the wrong object? No, you can simply modify the existing values of this property if needed or just use it as it is. If yes, does it have value you want to keep or are you tied up with fixed incoming data such as integration data? If no, you can just create a new property and erase this one. If you want to keep the data of this old property that doesn't match your object or your type, you can create a new property and use either a copy workflow or a turnaround workflow to take the data from this old property to the new one. So basically, every time you facing the situation of creating a new property, it's really important you follow those different steps we just saw together, so you're not creating chaos in your HubSpot portal.
Super cool. And if you're okay, we can like put this on the comment of the YouTube video. And also, we gonna shoot that on the newsletter that we're gonna prepare with Grégoire, and then you're gonna have them on your mailbox. Okay, thank you very much, Grégoire. Do you have the last word, the word that we're gonna retain of this episode?
Basically, it seems like I just keep saying that during all the podcasts, but the last word is always asking you, what is the goal? It works for properties, but everything about HubSpot and every SaaS we use actually, at the end, everything, they are just tools and they should reach a goal. They are not a bunch of features putting together that you need to use. It's not because HubSpot just released a new list scoring app, for instance, that you absolutely need to do list scoring in your company if you don't have needs for it. It's just really important to focus on what you want to achieve. Check if HubSpot can do it. Spoiler, it can do it, but just to limit yourself to exactly what you need and not lose yourself in a bunch of different features.
What is your goal? And then you created the process to go there. So thank you very much, Grégoire, for being part of this episode of ClubSpotters and for all the tips that you give to the audience. And yeah, see you very soon for next episode, maybe.
Oh, with pleasure. So thanks for the invitation again. If you want me to come back, I would be really happy to talk about automation next time or whatever you want. Thanks again,
Could be
Blondie.
a
It was a
good.
real pleasure.
Thank you very much, Grégoire. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. See you.